Welcome to a world of sci-fi set in a futuristic world where people's mental states are constantly monitored by a system called Sybil. This system can measure an individual's psychological condition, or psychopass, which reveals how likely someone is to commit a crime. If someone's crime coefficient gets too high, they are considered a threat, and the police, armed with special guns called dominators that only work on high-threat individuals, are sent to stop them. The story follows Akane Tsunemori, a young inspector with a strong sense of justice, and her team of enforcers who are former criminals now helping the police. As Akane learns more about the system, she begins to question if Sybil's way of deciding who is good or bad is truly fair. But before we jump into the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell for more updates in the future, no pun intended. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up as well. Let's jump right into the video now. It all begins with Shinya Kogami and Shogo Makishima confronting each other. Meanwhile, a girl narrates and tells us that they know each other better than anyone else. The scene then shifts to the city, where heavy rainfall is occurring. At the same time, an announcer from CID, a part of the Public Safety Bureau, informs that access to a certain block is currently restricted to ensure the citizens' safety. Meanwhile, a girl named Akane Tsunemori rushes to the crime scene and registers her identity. She is a new special agent, or inspector, just starting her first day. Moreover, she's immediately sent out to assist her partner, Inspector Nobuchika Genoza, on a mission. Genoza fills her in. A suspect named Nobuo Okura, an unemployed man in his 30s, was flagged because his psychopass crime coefficient, his risk score, is over 100, indicating a high potential for crime. His mental state, shown by the color of his hue, is a dark forest green, which suggests high stress and instability. Okura's high score set off a street scanner, which recommended he go for therapy. When he refused, the situation escalated, and he fled to an abandoned area where drones can't enter. To make things worse, he's taken a hostage and hidden her in a maze of buildings. Genoza and Akane must now bring Okura into custody. However, Akane and Genoza aren't alone in their search. A group of enforcers supports them. Enforcers are people with high crime coefficients whom society labels as latent criminals, those with the mindset to understand crime but haven't necessarily committed any. Because of their high scores, they are trusted to track down criminals, but they're also under the close supervision of inspectors. In Genoza's team, there are 4 enforcers: Shusei Kagari, Yayoi Kunizuka, Tomomi Masaoka, and Shinya Kogami. Each of them is equipped with a dominator, a unique high-tech firearm that reads a person's psychopass on the spot and adjusts its mode based on the threat level. Only criminal investigation department members can use the dominators, and they only work on people with dangerously high crime coefficients. Akane receives her dominator, and a female voice gives her a quick overview of its functions. She trained with this weapon during university, but using it in a real-world situation with real people is entirely different. She finds it strange that Okura let his stress levels get so high. Maybe he could have lowered his psychopass if he'd had more options, she thinks. As Akane joins the team, the enforcers, especially Shusei and Masaoka, are curious about her since she's clearly nervous. Genoza instructs Masaoka and Shinya to go with Akane, while Shusei and Yayoi follow him. Masaoka, a middle-aged enforcer, is calm and patient with Akane, knowing she'll need guidance in the field. Shinya, however, is blunt, warning her that she, as the inspector, has total control over the enforcer's actions. If she doesn't like what they're doing, she can even use the dominator against them, since they are also latent criminals. Whoa, Shinya's laying down the law quite boldly. That's one way to start a working partnership, man.
Right? And poor Akane's just trying to figure it all out. Gotta be rough for her to work with these people, but hey, time will only tell.
The dominators would work on them too. With that, the two groups split up and began their search. Meanwhile, Okura is hiding in a dingy room inside one of the buildings. He's bitter, thinking about how unfair the system is. He has tried to control himself to avoid getting flagged, but now he feels like he's already judged as a criminal just because of his high score and color. To him, the system seems wrong, as innocent people get marked as threats simply because of numbers and colors. But now that he's flagged, he feels he has nothing to lose. His frustration turns into a dark desire, and he begins to violate the hostage woman, holding her at knife point to keep her silent and scared. Back in the field, Akane is visibly anxious and mistakenly points her dominator at random bystanders, thinking they might be the suspect. Luckily, the gun doesn't activate unless someone's crime coefficient is above 100, so innocent people aren't harmed. However, the gun does recognize Masaoka as a potential target due to his crime coefficient of 120. Soon the team gets a message from Shusei. He has located Okura and tries to subdue him with a non-lethal paralyzer shot from his dominator. But to his surprise, it doesn't work. Okura seems to be on drugs that neutralize the dominator's effects. Furious, Okura grabs the hostage and flees through a window. Akane and Masaoka receive the update, and Akane becomes even more anxious, now worried about the hostage's safety. There's a phenomenon known as psychohazard, where a person with a high psychopass can negatively affect those around them, clouding their hue as well. The hostage's hue is already starting to get darker due to the trauma and threat to her life. If her crime coefficient rises too high, the enforcers will have to treat her as a threat too. Finally, Akane and Masaoka locate Okura, who is staggering towards the basement with the hostage on his shoulder. Masaoka calls out to him, and Okura, now even more desperate, desperate, threatens to harm the woman if they don't drop their weapons. Masaoka quietly complies, and Akane follows his lead. Okura picks up the dropped Dominator, but finds he can't operate it because it's programmed to work only for authorized users. Shinya, who has been waiting for a clear shot, now has his Dominator set to lethal eliminator mode. With one pull of the trigger, he fires, and Okura is instantly reduced to a mess of blood and flesh. With Okura neutralized, Masaoka turns his attention to the hostage. Her crime coefficient has climbed above 160, and the system now registers her as a potential threat. He prepares to shoot, but Akane steps in and argues that she's just a traumatized bystander, not a criminal. They shouldn't rely on her psychopath score without understanding the context of her mental state. This pause allows the woman to escape deeper into the basement, where she finds gasoline containers and a lighter. Her mind is clouded by fear, and she prepares to take extreme action, ready to end her life rather than be caught. Shinya quickly follows the hostage and is about to shoot when Akane intervenes, ordering him to stop. He glances at her, whispers something, and gives her a challenging smile, testing her resolve. In a bold move, Akane fires a non-lethal paralyzer at Shinya, stopping him. Trembling but determined, Akane tries to calm the hostage by speaking kindly, encouraging her to put down the lighter, and promising her that the gun won't hurt her. Just as the woman starts to trust Akane, Genoza, observing from above, shoots a paralyzer, knocking the hostage unconscious. The situation leaves Akane visibly shaken, realizing that in this system, anyone with a high psychopath is treated as a threat, with no exceptions. As the lead investigator, Genoza tells Akane she must write a report on her conduct during the mission. Reflecting on the day, Akane can't help but feel that this must be one of the hardest and most distressing first day experiences anyone could have in a job. The morning after her intense first day, Akane Tsunemori wakes up tired and groggy, having barely slept. Her cheerful household hologram companion, Candy, greets her, reminding her of the day's schedule. As Akane goes about her morning routine, we get a sense of just how advanced the technology in her world has become. Aside from her holographic house assistant, Akane can instantly redecorate her home with digital projections. Her meals are prepared by a microwave-like device that calculates her exact caloric needs, and her wardrobe selection is stored on a small disk. The device scans her body and projects clothing onto her, giving her a range of styles with just a few clicks. It's the kind of futuristic tech people used to only dream about. Later, Akane meets her friends Yuki and Kaori to talk about her worries from her first day on the job. She doesn't tell them everything, but they know that working for the Crime Investigation Department, CID, is never easy. From their chat, we learn that Akane was an excellent student with high grades, qualifying her for top-level jobs, but she chose to work for the Public Safety Bureau instead. Her psychopath has always been healthy. Even in stressful times, her mental state, or hue, has stayed clear. Their conversation also shows how the psychopath's system impacts people's career paths. Those with high crime coefficients are often stereotyped as criminals, even if they haven't done anything wrong. Yuki and Kaori reassure Akane, who is starting to doubt if she's really right for this line of work. Yuki reminds her that the system chose her because she has what it takes. That afternoon, Akane heads to her shift at CID Division 1, where Inspector Genoza is in charge. Their job is to lead criminal investigations using various tools, including the enforcers, who work as their assistants but are themselves tagged as latent criminals. Another team member is Shion Karnamori, the data analyst who handles research and technical support. Akane goes to see her for updates on Shinya, the enforcer she had to shoot with her Dominator during her first mission. Shion, a striking blonde and a latent criminal herself, greets Akane with a mixture of humor and sarcasm, though she genuinely cares for her team. She shows Akane the live video feed from Shinya's hospital room. Akane is surprised to learn that her shot hit his spinal cord and may take a while to heal. Shion senses that Akane feels guilty and encourages her to visit Shinya, but Akane hesitates, thinking she might just be a bother. Akane goes to the main office to try to write her report about the previous day's events. The office is filled with tables, computers, and equipment. However, she finds it hard to focus, replaying the intense mission in her head. Nearby, Shusei and Yayoi are wrapping up their shift, and Masaoka, the middle-aged enforcer, arrives for his. Suddenly, an announcement comes over the speakers. A nearby department store has flagged a person with a dangerously high psychopath. With Genoza out, Masaoka tells Akane to come along with him. They enter the department store wearing holographic disguises to blend in. To Akane's surprise, Masaoka spots the person causing trouble without even using his Dominator. He simply observes the man's behavior and can tell he's the one flagged by the system. When Akane asks how he does it, Masaoka explains that over the years he's developed an instinct for spotting criminal intent just by watching people. Dang, Masaoka just pulled a Sherlock, spotting criminals without tech. He's got skills that no Dominator can match.
Or he's just taking wild guesses. I mean, Akane's gotta be like, Is he psychic or just super judgmental?
It's this ability, he says, that may be why his own crime coefficient is high. He can sense criminality because he knows what it looks like. Later that night, Akane sits down for dinner, and Shusei joins her, asking why she chose to work for the Public Safety Bureau. To him, Akane doesn't seem like someone suited for this tough job, judging by her gentle nature and demeanor. Akane explains that she was the only applicant with an A rating and for the bureau and thought she could make a difference there. She also hoped that working in the bureau might help her find her purpose in life. But Shusei doesn't like her answer. He's been labeled as a latent criminal since he was just 5 years old, and therapy doesn't work for him. He chose to become an enforcer because he didn't want to be isolated for life. It was the only choice he had. Hearing someone like Akane talk about finding a purpose in the bureau bothers him because she had options that he never did. Frustrated, he asks her again why she took the job, but even Akane isn't quite sure. Akane decides to visit Shinya in the hospital. Ever since meeting him, she's sensed that he's driven by his own strong sense of purpose and judgment. She's begun to wonder if she too has the right judgment to make tough calls in her line of work. She finds Shinya awake and standing beside his bed. She apologizes for having to shoot him, saying she fears that the others may think she was just in the way. But Shinya reassures her, saying he respects her for following her own sense of right and wrong. He reminds her that being an inspector isn't about punishing people, but about protecting them. For him, Akane's decision to give people another chance is a good quality, not something to be ashamed of. Her role, he suggests, should be about helping people find a better path in life, not simply following orders. Akane feels relieved by Shinya's validation, but he quickly grows tense, reminding himself of why he's still an enforcer. He has unfinished business, and until he resolves it, he can't let himself rest or consider another path. The next day, Akane submits her report to Genoza, standing by her choice to prevent the enforcers from using lethal force on the hostage. They receive positive news about the hostage the other day. Her psychopath has stabilized with therapy, and she's doing well. Akane feels validated in her belief that giving the woman a second chance is the right decision. When Genoza consults Shinya about Akane's report, Shinya says he has no problem with it, and with that, their case is officially closed. The next morning, Shinya is working out, keeping himself fit. For him, staying in shape isn't just about being an enforcer. It's about being ready for the day he'll face his biggest challenge. But today, he and the others have a new case to solve. As they travel to a drone manufacturing facility, Genoza explains the details to Akane. The victim, Shioyama Daisuke, is the third person to die at the facility this year. His body was found in the behavior inspection zone, mutilated by a drone he was testing. While it might look like an accident, 3 similar incidents in 1 year have made the CID suspicious. When they arrive, Akane sees the enforcers arriving separately. She tells Genoza she's eager to work with them as colleagues, but Genoza warns her to be careful about getting close to them. He tells her that fools learn from experience, while the wise learn from history. Akane should decide which one she wants to learn from. The facility manager, Corrado Goda, greets them and gives them a tour. He explains that this facility, run by the Ministry of Economy, produces thousands of drones used throughout the country. Machines handle the early stages of production, but people, called debuggers, do the final testing and inspection. This is detailed round-the-clock work, so to keep them focused and prevent hacking, the facility is entirely offline. Goda takes them to the crime scene, but it has already been cleaned up. Images of the body are stored on a disk, and the drone involved is now in the crime lab. However, all its data has been erased. Goda insists that the employees' Sesko passes are monitored and kept within acceptable levels, so he finds it hard to believe any of them could be involved in a murder. Genoza, Yayoi, and Shinya discuss the situation with Goda, suggesting that there might be a murderer among the staff. Genoza wants all employees to step outside so the enforcers can check them with their dominators, who can read crime coefficients. But Goda refuses, saying he can't disrupt the facility's work unless the CID has solid evidence. Genoza and Yayoi return to their office to go over the employees' data, while Akane and the others stay at the facility. During lunch, Akane sees some workers bullying a man named Yuji Kanahara. Kanahara is quiet and doesn't fight back, so the bullies push him around for entertainment. Goda sees it too and casually mentions that Kanahara has been bullied for over a year. Because the facility is offline, the workers find their own ways to amuse themselves, and for some, picking on Kanahara is fun. He hints that the system might have placed Kanahara here because he's suited to be the group's entertainment. Dude, what's up with the bullies? Like, even in a system that's supposed to maintain order, it's just sad to see someone getting picked on like that.
I know, right? It's not cool at all. This is giving me Mean Girls vibes. There's always that one person who gets picked on.
This annoys Shinya, who says that if that's true, then maybe the system chose Goda as a manager because he turns a blind eye to bullying. Goda is left speechless. Back in the CID office, Akane, Genoza, and the enforcers review the employees' psychopath data. Akane is surprised to see that Kanahara has the most suspicious mental state of everyone, which often clouds before the murder and clears afterward. The enforcers aren't surprised by this, although it isn't solid proof. it adds to the suspicion around him. Given that the victims were mutilated in a way that suggests a deep grudge and that Kanehara's bullying began around the time the murder started, he becomes the primary suspect. However, they still lack real evidence, so they need a plan to make him reveal himself. Genoza becomes uncharacteristically harsh toward Masaoka and Shinya, who have been discussing ways to lure Kanehara out. Confused, Akane talks to Genoza in private. She doesn't ask for an explanation, but tells him she's willing to go along with their plan. Genoza gives her a long look and finally says she is a fool after all. That evening, Yayoi and Shusei set up a 200-meter communication line so the CID team could connect their equipment to the facility system, even though it was offline. Masaoka gets their station ready, while Shinya and Akane head back into the facility to confront Kanehara. To Akane's shock, Shinya taunts Kanehara, using harsh words and even threatening to expose his clouded hue, making it look like he's connected to the murders. Terrified, Kanehara runs to a room full of drones, pulling out a disc with a program to control them. He sends one drone charging at Shinya and Akane like an angry machine, and a second drone joins in. Akane and Shinya make a run for the second floor, where Yayoi and Shusei have just arrived with their dominators connected to the facility system. Kanehara, who has lost control, threatens to mutilate everyone to clear his own psychopaths. Shinya points his dominator at Kanehara, and it registers a crime coefficient of 265, solid evidence linking him to the murders. Shinya uses the dominator's paralyzing mode to stop him, then destroys the drones with the lethal destroy decomposer mode. They arrest the unconscious Kanehara, confirming Akane's intuition that following the enforcer's plan was the right decision. But as Akane looks at Shinya, she realizes something unsettling. He has a manic, almost predatory look in his eyes as he deals with Kanehara. To her, it's as if she's watching a hunter cornering its prey, and she isn't sure how she feels about it. We get an insight into Talisman Salon. In this salon, only the matters of others are talked about. There, Talisman asks Lemonade Candy to share something. She reveals that one of her friends is facing issues right now and expresses to discuss her. Talisman then gives the green light to Lemonade Candy. We then discover that this avatar of Lemonade Candy is actually Akane's. There, Akane relays her concern about one of her colleagues whose morality baffles her. At first, Lemonade Candy mentions how her friend recently started working, but understands that she doesn't regret it. Lemonade Candy believes that her friend is having trouble with her work relationships. She then talks about a specific work colleague at her friend's workplace, who is a bit difficult to describe. Talisman then chimes in, asking if this friend doesn't get along well with this colleague. Lemonade Candy confirms this, but also mentions that sometimes her friend feels that what his colleague is saying is right. The Talisman advises her to drop any preconceptions she has in mind about this colleague. Try to learn his true character. Bro, this Talisman Salon is a hilarious shift after all that intense stuff.
Think about it. Being around Shinya has got Akane losing it so bad that she's now turning to fictional advice.
Snapping back from the game, Akane is now left thinking if she should really face the true character of Shinya. On the other hand, Masaoka has something different to say when Akane goes to him to ask about Shinya. Masaoka says she can't understand Shinya without her crime coefficient going up. What he can say about his fellow enforcer is that he experienced something that greatly affected his psychopaths. Even now, Shinya can't let go of that specific incident, and his determination to deal with it is probably what's keeping his psychopaths high. Their conversation is cut short when Akane receives a short message from Genoza. They have a new case to investigate. The scene this time is in a tidy but empty apartment. According to Genoza, home security has reported an oddity in this unit. The toilet has been broken for the past 2 months. As per regulations, the tenant must file a report about it to have it fixed. The system has flagged it suspicious upon discovering it. The tenant, Kimihiko Hayama, hasn't been in contact for the last 2 months. Although unemployed, he receives good compensation from an affiliate service provider for having a famous avatar online and hosting a popular commie field. It's like being an influencer in their world. When they check the holographic configuration of the unit, they discover the misplaced sofa, indicating that someone rearranged the furniture but failed to put them back in their original place. Upon investigating, they find a deep scratch mark on the wooden floor. Shinya also finds telltale signs of adhesive tapes on the floor, suggesting that something has been taped there. Shinya's assumption of what happened is too gruesome. He says that Hayama isn't missing, but dead. The suspect, or suspects, must have attacked him 2 months ago and claimed his life. To avoid leaving evidence, they dismembered the body and flushed the pieces down the toilet. He suggests programming the drones to inspect the unit's drainage system. While they're talking, Shusei gets access to Hayama's profile. Akane is shocked to find that the victim's avatar is the famous Talisman, whom she talked to just a few hours ago. The question now looms, who is taking over his avatar if Hayama is dead? At their headquarters, Shion confirms the presence of body remains inside the drainage. It's not yet conclusive that it's Hayama, but the CID is almost certain of it. About the suspect taking over the avatar, Shion reports reports that whoever it is using a suspicious but secure server with several fake IP addresses. I mean, whoever's taking over Hayama's avatar is like super tech savvy. Setting up fake IPs, that's some hacker level wizardry.
For real, it's like they went to the school of digital deception or something. Gotta respect the smartness.
It's not advisable to track the person carelessly, but they can assume the suspect hasn't found out about them, so that's their advantage. For now, their lead is the avatar talisman. They decide that Akane and Genoza should visit its commie field. Once there, Akane explains that Talisman is very famous among internet users. His commie field, the Talisman Saloon, is a safe online space for those seeking advice for their problems. A few seconds later, they see him entering another commie field. Akane recognizes this is the space of Spooky Boogie, a well-known anarchist and currently the #1 avatar. As Akane and Genoza talk, someone pulls Akane away into a private virtual chat room. Spooky Boogie has recognized Akane. The person behind Spooky Boogie says she knows her because they've attended the same high school. She also knows that Akane is with the CID, and her presence there means she's in the middle of an investigation. Akane doesn't reveal the details, but asks if there's anything odd about the person behind Talisman. Spooky Boogie says nothing seems amiss about him these days. But 2 months before, the avatar showed erratic behaviors. She says the avatar had been hosting several events intended to get affiliate money. This contributed to his popularity's gradual decline. But then, he suddenly changed and is now beloved by his followers again. Spooky Boogie finds this odd, because it's hard for a declining avatar to make a comeback. By the end of their discussion, she offers to aid the CID in her investigation. She'll host a physical party at Club Exocet under the guise of challenging Talisman into a virtual battle. There, the CID can take whoever's controlling Talisman into custody. Genoza and the others agree with this plan. Akane is sent to mingle with the partygoers while wearing their avatars as hollow suit. Masaoka and Shinya will provide support, while Genoza, Yayoi, and Shusei stand guard at the doors. What they don't know is that the owner of the club, Choigu-sang, is in cahoots with the person controlling Talisman. He's found out that someone among the guests is carrying a dominator, so he makes things hard for Akane and the others. Just as she approaches the suspect, Gusong simultaneously hacks all the holosuits to look like Talisman. Chaos ensues when Masaoka and Shinya charge in with their dominators. Outside, Genoza and others can't move because of the confusion. In her commie field, everyone is blaming Spooky Boogie for the fiasco. Since they're engaging in discussions against the system, they're afraid the CID may be after them. Spooky Boogie strongly denies her involvement, but Talisman joins the crowd and insinuates she helped the officers get inside the club. Then he accuses her of betraying her character, that she doesn't deserve to be an avatar loved by everyone. He implies he can take over because he knows more about her than she does herself. In real life, Shoko Sugawara, the owner of the Spooky Boogie avatar, is incensed by Talisman's audacity. She starts banning him in her commie field, but before she's done, someone says it's not necessary. A man behind her strangles her, chuffing the life out of her body. This man is Masatake Mido, the one who's taken over Talisman, and will now be taking over Spooky Boogie. Just outside the room, his accomplices Gusong and a third one named Shogo Makishima are waiting. Shogo seems to be pleased about Mido's enthusiasm for what he's about to do to Shoko's lifeless body. The next day, through her avatar, Akane contacts Spooky Boogie to discuss last night's events. However, Spooky Boogie only expresses disappointment in the police and declares she'll never work with them again. Akane shares this conversation with her colleagues. Meanwhile, Shion is monitoring Talisman's online activity, noticing his popularity has spiked since last night. Genoza and the team are still trying to determine the motive behind taking over Hayama's avatar. Genoza suggests tracking the IP addresses used by the suspect, but Shinya has his own thoughts on the matter. They challenge each other, ultimately deciding to pursue separate approaches. Shinya reviews Akane's conversations with Spooky Boogie and notices a crucial difference. Spooky Boogie had never used the word police before, but she did in their recent conversation. This inconsistency suggests the suspect may have taken over Spooky Boogie's avatar as well. Meanwhile, Genoza and the others locate one of the proxy IP addresses used by the suspect. However, when they arrive at the apartment, they find it rigged with bombs. Thankfully, no one is injured. Shinya contacts Genoza to share his findings, confirming that the suspect has taken over both Spooky Boogie's avatar and her commie field after killing Shoko Sugawara. They identify Shoko as Akane's former schoolmate, and the method used to kill her is disturbingly similar to that used on Hayama. After receiving the update, Genoza orders everyone to regroup at their office to revise their strategy. Back at the office, Shion uncovers another potentially related case. Half a year earlier, a student named Yuchi Tokito died in an accident. He had been using his grandfather's avatar, Melancholia, and managing its commie field, Rainy Blue. However, the avatar continues to be active online, unbeknownst to Yuchi's grandfather, who believes that the money coming in is his pension rather than the affiliate income Melancholia earns. Shion adds that if the person currently operating Melancholia's avatar is indeed their suspect, he must be a heavy user with the ability to flawlessly imitate the original owners without arousing suspicion. Genoza wonders why fans of avatars like Melancholia, Talisman, and Spooky Boogie never noticed any changes. avatars. The question also arises as to why these avatars have been hijacked. But Shinya answers that, mentioning that it isn't a matter of authenticity. Avatars are seen as icons in the digital world, embodying ideals and philosophies that people idolize. As long as these ideologies are upheld, it hardly matters who is behind the avatar. A devoted fan could easily step in to continue these ideals, even better than the original owners. Shinya suggests that the suspect might be a fan with a deep understanding of these avatars who can imitate them convincingly. He asks Shion to pull up data on Talisman's top 100 fans and identify anyone who stopped participating in the avatar's commune field about 2 months ago. This pattern, he believes, would also be seen among the top fans of Melancholia and Spooky Boogie, indicating that the suspect abandoned his own avatar once he took over others. Shion finds a match, a man named Masatake Mido, who fits the profile. After a few more checks, she pinpoints his last known online activity at a hotel in Roppongi, with his home address nearby in Motoazabu. Jinoza sends Akane, Shinya, and Masaoka to the hotel, while he and the others check Mido's home. On the way, Akane notices Masaoka carrying a bottle of alcohol and wonders why. She soon learns the reason. Upon arrival, they find that Mido has set up a holographic trap inside the hotel room, even hacking nearby holosuits so that innocent maids appear to be him. In response, Shinya throws a lighter to Masaoka, who uses the alcohol to blow a stream of fire, triggering the sprinkler system. This renders the holograms ineffective, allowing Shinya to shoot Mido in the arm before he escapes. Mido retreats to his apartment, where he activates his 3 avatars, Melancholia, Talisman, and Spooky Boogie, gazing at them as if they are alive. Mido has long idolized these avatars and internalized their ideals, viewing them as more real than their original owners. However, another figure has control over these avatars, Shogo Makishima. Yo, this plot twist is getting more and more interesting.
For real! It's like a twisted version of Toy Story, but instead of toys, it's avatars with a side of chaos. Can't wait to see how this unfolds.
Disappointed, Shogo tells Mido he initially helped him because Mido could perfectly replicate avatars, making Shogo curious about his personality. But now Shogo sees that Mido is an empty shell, merely repeating the beliefs of others. In Shogo's eyes, Mido is just another avatar to be manipulated. Becoming frantic, Mido demands that Shogo release his avatars. So absorbed in his outburst, he fails to notice Jinoza, Yayoi, and Shusei entering his room. When he does realize, it's too late. He meets his demise and the case closes. Yet Akane is still left in deep thought. Shinya, though labeled a latent criminal with a high crime coefficient, had comforted her after Shoko's death and encouraged her to persevere. She struggles to reconcile this kind, supportive side of him with the idea that he has the same potential for criminal behavior as someone like Mido. Jinoza warns her about the importance of keeping a clear boundary between herself as an inspector and the enforcers, a safeguard for her psychopaths. He mentions a former partner who lost this sense of separation, much to her surprise. It turns out that the former partner was none other than Shinya. Once an inspector himself, Shinya was demoted to enforcer after an unsolved case pushed his crime coefficient beyond the threshold. Now, Akane is left wondering about the case that transformed Shinya so profoundly. Shinya is in a state of panic as he cannot find Mitsuru. Determined, he doesn't want to leave without finding him, so he rushes forward when suddenly he comes across a strange creature. Suddenly, Shinya wakes up from his terrifying nightmare and lights up a cigarette to wash everything down. Later, Joshu Kasi, the chief of the Public Safety Bureau, asks Jinoza about Akane. Jinoza responds positively, believing that Akane has a bright future ahead. Thereafter, Joshu expresses that she hopes that Akane won't end up like the partners Jinoza has had before. She believes that inspectors like Jinoza are one of a kind and that they shouldn't be distracted from their goals. Moreover, she reminds Jinoza that science is still yet to answer whether the relationship between genetics and crime coefficients is even possible. Furthermore, Joshu advises Jinoza not to make the same mistakes as his dad. Later at school, Rikako receives a message from someone. Rikako tells her that she is studying Shakespeare right now. In response, the stranger mentions that she specifically likes Shakespeare's tragedy novels, Macbeth and Titus Andronicus. Curious, Rikako questions if those two are the interesting ones, to which the strange replies that those two novels are cruel. Hearing this, Rikako grows unusually excited. Meanwhile, Akane hesitates to check the database directly, fearing Shinya might discover her curiosity. Instead, she decides to ask her colleagues, Shusei and Shion, to get a general idea of what happened. From them, she learns about a case Shinya and Jinoza handled 3 years ago, known as the specimen case. The disturbing details revolved around plastination, a process using special resin to turn human tissues into plastic, preserving them as biological specimens. In this case, plastination became a horrifying way to kill. The victims were first dismembered, and then their bodies were injected with resin, turning them into grotesque plastic displays. Whoa, the specimen case is straight up nightmare fuel. Like, who thought turning murder into art was a good idea?
It truly is like a horror movie gone wrong. Man, who knew crime could be so creative? These corpses were publicly displayed under holographic lights, making people believe they were just art installations. But once the truth came out, the public's psychopath levels spiked. state, causing such high area stress that a news blackout was ordered to prevent further panic. One of Shinya's enforcers, Mitsuru Sasayama, tragically lost his life investigating the case. Just as Shinya was close to identifying the real killer, the chief of the Public Safety Bureau closed the case. Around the same time, an unrelated case involving a missing high school teacher, Kozaburo Toma, was under investigation. When Toma's apartment was searched, investigators found plastic resin similar to that used in the specimen case, leading to the assumption he was the murderer. Toma was never found, but the chief decided to label him as the culprit, making it appear as if the case had been solved. This decision was made even though the investigators still didn't know who manufactured the resin or supplied it to the killer. This unresolved mystery left Shinya deeply affected. Even after the case was closed, he couldn't let it go, driven by a need to find the real perpetrator. His relentless pursuit pushed his crime coefficient to dangerous levels, resulting in his demotion from inspector to enforcer. Despite his demotion, Shinya remains determined, believing he will one day have the opportunity to bring the true culprit to justice. His commitment to the case has become almost an obsession. Meanwhile, Genoza is questioning Yuji Kanahara, the suspect in the recent drone murders. Genoza wants to understand how Kanahara obtained a disc containing a code that allowed him to control and weaponize drones. In discussing the case with his team, Genoza notices small details that might be significant. In the drone case, someone might have seen Kanahara's rising psychopath score through routine checkups and decided to supply him with the disc, giving him a way to act on his suppressed urge to kill. Similarly, in the Avatar murder case, Mido's obsession with social media was clear, but he lacked the skills needed to hack holographic suits, suggesting he had help. Shion adds that her analysis of the two cases points to the possibility that the person who programmed the drone disc might be the same one who hacked the holosuits, meaning a skilled cybercriminal is likely involved. However, the motive behind these actions is unclear. Shinya interrupts, saying that both Kanahara and Mido had the motives to kill. They only needed the means, which someone provided. Without another word, he leaves the office. Genoza follows him, sensing that Shinya has connected these recent events to something from his past. Shinya goes to his quarters and retrieves an old folder containing details from the specimen case, convinced that the true mastermind behind that case is now aiding Kanahara and Mido. In the specimen case, resin was the tool for murder, whereas now it's a piece of software. In both cases, someone has empowered these would-be killers to act on their dark desires. Shinya is certain it's the same person and vows to catch them, determined to settle things for Sasayama's sake. Meanwhile, two personnel from the Public Cleaning Bureau are trying to fix a glitching fountain hologram. When it is turned off, they find a very unusual object at the bottom. They're not sure if it's an artwork or something else. The best way they can describe it is like a doll poised elaborately, but in poor taste. If it's an artwork, it's definitely something they won't display in their homes. Simultaneously, we see Rikako drawing a portrait of Lavinia in the presence of Shogo. He asks Rikako if she thinks Lavinia is happy while she is being freed from her violated body. Rikako responds with a line from one of her favorite novels, Titus. In response, Shogo reminds Rikako that even the most beautiful flowers must wither and die one day. Their conversation takes a dark turn when Rikako turns around and deliberately mentions that she has many more drawings to complete in the future. Rikako visits her father, Roichi, in the hospital, where she gets comforted by the nurse, mentioning that her father is very happy to see her, but in reality, his mental state is completely gone. Later, Rikako goes on an outing with her father in a wheelchair by the riverbank. There, she contemplates about her father's current state. She understands that Roichi is affected by a disease called serenity that takes away all the senses from someone. Moreover, once this disease is found in someone, it makes them live the rest of their lives miserably until one day they disappear like melting snow. Rikako believes that this disease is a form of death that many people wish for. Meanwhile, the Public Safety Bureau's Criminal Investigation Division has received reports about a strange object found at the base of a fountain in the park. Inspectors Genoza and Akane, along with enforcer Shinya, arrive to investigate. Right away, they sense that this case might resemble the specimen case from 3 years ago. To avoid bias, Genoza removes Shinya from the case, assigning Akane to watch over him, not wanting Shinya's personal feelings to affect the investigation. The specimen case involved a series of gruesome murders where dismembered bodies were turned into plastic specimens using a process called plastination. These bodies were scattered around the city, hidden beneath holograms. The case was never solved, and it affected Shinya deeply, causing his psychopath score to skyrocket and marking him as a latent criminal in the eyes of the Siebel system. This led to his demotion to enforcer status, But Shinya never gave up his search for the truth. Even now, he keeps all the records, convinced he'll someday catch the real culprit. Back in the office, Genoza and his team go over the details. The latest victim is a student named Kazuhara Sasuke from Oso Academy. The chemicals found on her body match those used in the unsolved case from 3 years ago. Enforcer Masoka points out a connection. The main suspect in the specimen case, Toma Kuzaburo, used to teach at this same academy. Tuma went missing as the investigation reached its peak, and when police searched his home, they found plastic resin materials, which led to suspicion around him. He was never located, though, so the new discovery makes the team wonder if the same suspect could be involved again. Another enforcer, Shusei, laments that Shinya isn't allowed on the case. Meanwhile, Shinya spends his free time sparring with a droid in the department's training area, while Akane watches. When he finishes, she notices that he sets the sparring difficulty to its highest level. When she asks him why, Shinya explains that training this hard helps him feel deserving of using the Dominator, a powerful weapon. To him, it's essential to be mentally prepared and accountable for pulling the trigger, as he believes it's not the weapon, but the person who chooses to end a life. The rigorous combat training helps him build the strength and responsibility he feels he needs to wield such a weapon. Later, Akane asks Shinya questions about the specimen case. She wonders if he's angry with her for watching him so closely. Shinya assures her he's not upset and doesn't regret letting the investigation impact his psychopaths. His only frustration is with himself for failing to catch the true culprit. Although Tuma took the blame at the time, Shinya never believed he was the mastermind. Akane then asks about Mitsuru Sasayama, an enforcer who died tragically during the investigation.
Digging up the past memories? That's never too good.
Oh, relax, dude. This might actually help Shinya unload some of that emotional baggage. Shinya describes Sasayama as a difficult character, but admits he found him interesting. He reveals that Sasayama suffered a horrifying death, dismembered alive, and then coated in resin. The worst part, Shinya explains, is that his body was found under a holographic advertisement for a pharmacy that read, "Our safe stress care will transport you to a world without suffering." Shinya sees this message as a taunt from the mastermind and is determined to find the true killer to make them pay. When Akane asks if he has any leads, Shinya shows her a blurry image he found in Sasayama's file, with the file name Shogo. At Oso Academy, news of Kazuhara's death spreads, and the students are shaken. Kagami, one of the students, confides in her friend Mika about her concerns, particularly for her friend Yoshika, who hasn't shown up to school for days. Mika seems indifferent, but suggests Kagami talk to Rikako Oryo since Yoshika has been admiring Rikako lately. This advice will soon prove regrettable, as Rikako is actually the primary culprit. Yoshika has already become her victim, lying lifeless in Rikako's room. Rikako talks to Yoshika's body as if she's still alive, explaining her family background. Rikako's father, Roichi Oryo, was a renowned artist, known for his controversial work depicting dismembered girls in his paintings, which he believed revealed humanity's hidden cruelty. But as the Sibyl system and its psychopath assessments grew popular, Roichi lost his motivation and gave up his artistic expression, eventually becoming addicted to stress relief treatments. Over time, he slipped into a vegetative state and, just that morning, passed away. Rikako feels little emotion over his death. To her, he had died long ago when he became what she views as a useless invalid. She blames this on what she calls a pathogen in society, an addiction to peace and comfort which stifles true vitality. Now, feeling empowered, she's made it her mission to revive her father's forgotten art by continuing his work, using human bodies as her medium. She's already made 2 installations, and with Yoshika as her third, she feels unstoppable. Meanwhile, in his mansion, Shogo discusses Rikako with an elderly man named Toyohisa Senguchi. He explains that he's intrigued by Rikako because of what happened to her father. Roichi was once a respected artist whose works, though dark, illustrated his belief that humanity's cruelty, if acknowledged, could lead to greater self-awareness and morality. But when stress care procedures became widespread, Roichi turned to technology and eventually became dependent on it, losing his edge and ambition. Shogo calls his condition eustress deficiency cerebral infarction, a silent epidemic that has taken many lives. However, the government refuses to recognize it, dismissing the deaths as mysterious heart failures. Shogo believes Rikako's motivation for committing these crimes stems from her hatred of the system that, in her eyes, killed her father twice, once by stifling his art, and again by taking his life. He wants to see if Rikako can measure up to her father's reputation and make an impact on the system. Meanwhile, Rikako dresses up, packs Yoshika's body into a suitcase, and sends it down a chute leading to an abandoned generator room below the academy. Since it's late, the school is quiet, and she slips into a hidden entrance unnoticed. Waiting for her in the generator room is Gu-sung, a student who's actually a spy working under Shogo Makishima's orders. Choi supplies Rikako with the resin she'll need for her project. Curious, Rikako does question Gu-sung about where Shogo found these supplies from. Gu-sung explains that Shogo did mention that these were leftover stockpiles from past festivities. Rikako understands that Shogo does pick on those who have gone astray, and asks Gu-sung if he is one of them. Though Gu-sung has no idea what it is, he feels like he relives his childhood every time he is with Shogo. Rikako understands and explains to Gu-sung that people like Shogo create toys, and they are the ones who use those toys to create a fuss. Gu-sung then disguises himself into a girl's body and leaves the room, while Rikako prepares herself. Later, Jinoza and his partner find the decapitated head of Yoshika in the same park as before. Back at school, Kagami visits Rikako to express her concern regarding Yoshika, who has been missing for 3 straight days now. Seeing that she is worried for her childhood friend, Rikako secretly makes up her mind to make Kagami her next victim. As Kagami approaches her, Rikako unnoticeably tranquilizes her. Later in the basement room, Rikako comments how touching it is to see a reunion of the 2 female best friends. Meanwhile, Kagami is tied up right beside the chamber of her dead friend, Yoshika. With the addition of 2 more girls missing from the dormitories, the school steps up its security. The CID is also on campus to investigate, but uses holosuits to keep the students from feeling stressed by their presence. No one suspects that the calm and popular student Rikako and the charming art teacher, who is really Shogo Makishima posing as Mr. Shibata, are the ones behind these gruesome deaths. Shogo questions Rikako about why she chose students from the school as her art pieces. Rikako then gives a disturbing explanation, painting an eerie picture of her recent victims, Yoshika and Kagami. In her view, Oso Academy is a traditional school based on 2 main virtues, chastity and grace. These values are expected only from girls, not boys, and are taught to them until they graduate. To Rikako, the school treats its female students like raw stones, shaped to create ladies who will be shown off and eventually purchased by men looking for a good wife and mother. Since these students are part of that art, Rikako sees it as her right as an artist to use them to express her ideas, that girls don't have to be confined to this narrow path. This is her way of honoring her father, bringing his creations to life outside the canvas. Shogo is intrigued by her answer, but feels she may have reached her full potential and is starting to lose his interest. Meanwhile, Jinoza and the CID team discuss their investigation. Akane and Shinya share insights of their own. Shinya's intuition tells him this case is different from the original specimen case. The bodies in the specimen case were placed strategically to send a specific message. Here, however, the bodies are all found in the park, a place where anyone can see them. It seems more about attracting attention than delivering a particular message. Shinya suggests the killer may lack originality and is simply copying the style to shock the public. He starts profiling the culprit, likely a young, intelligent person from a wealthy family, someone with no history of abuse based on the way the bodies were handled. Akane is impressed by Shinya's confidence, and he explains that this technique is called profiling, a method used before the Sybil system took over. He then asks Akane if they can visit someone who may help them with the case, and she agrees. They head to a rehabilitation center for those with crime coefficients above 300, where they meet Koichi Ashikaga, a former art dealer. Shinya believes their culprit may be an artist, so he shows Koichi the photos of the bodies. Koichi immediately notices the similarity to the works of Roichi Oryo, a well-known artist.
Damn. An artist being a killer? Is this Patrick Bateman from American Psycho we talking about?
Right? Like, is this giving art a bad rap, or is it just peak creativity? He shows them one of Roichi's famous gruesome paintings. The name doesn't seem familiar to Shinya or Akane, but when Akane checks Oso Academy's records, she discovers that a student there is a direct relative of Roichi. They hurry to the school. When they arrive, they find Rikako alone in the art room, calmly painting. Shinya points his dominator at her, showing a crime coefficient of 472. Before he can take action, Shogo, who is disguised as the teacher, intervenes, allowing Rikako to escape. Her popularity makes it easy for her to hide among the other students, and with the help of Gusung, who's still disguised as a student, she manages to flee into the underground parts of the school. Shinya then asks Yayoi to review the surveillance footage, isolating any footage showing Rikako. While waiting, he explains to Jinoza that if the original specimen case suspect, Tuma Kuzaburo, were responsible, he wouldn't place his victims in such obvious locations. Even if Rikako isn't the mastermind, they can't ignore her high crime coefficient. A short while later, they find footage of Rikako using a secret entrance. The CID team rushes to the location, only to find it empty except for Rikako's third artwork. Mika, devastated, watches as the authorities recover the bodies of her friends. Unbeknownst to the CID, Shogo listens to the recorded security footage he planted around the school. Hearing Shinya's deductions, he takes an immediate interest in him, but knows he must erase any traces linking him to Rikako before the CID finds out. While studying the footage, Shinya realizes some tapes from the art room have been tampered with. He tries to restore what he can and manages to recover a fragment of audio in which Rikako addresses someone as Mr. Makishima. As for Rikako, she is being led deeper underground by Gusung. At some point, she realizes she's alone. Shogo contacts her, expressing disappointment. Confused, Rikako asks Shogo what she did. Meanwhile, Shogo believes that if Rikako doesn't know what she did, then she can't reflect on it either. He then ends the phone call after quoting a line by Tamora, the Queen of Goths. When the call ends, Rikako realizes her end is about to come. Indeed, Toyohisa is already hunting her with his 2 robotic dogs. In a few minutes, we see one of the dogs cutting Rikako's hand and Toyohisa blowing her head off with a shotgun, marking her death. During this time, Shogo has been quoting the lines by Tamora. After he is done, he gets questioned by Gusung if he doesn't like Rikako. In response, Shogo reveals that he just had no need for her anymore as he has found a new dog to play with. He then asks Gusung to look into Shinya, believing that he is probably an enforcer. Shinya seems to have grabbed Shogo's attention with his intellect in assessing the things around him. The search for Rikako at the school continues, but Shinya knows she won't be found again. Surprisingly, Jinoza approaches him and takes him away for a private conversation. As they make their way to someplace else, Shinya tells Jinoza to just tell him if he has a problem with him again. In response, Jinoza apologizes to Shinya, believing that he himself was the one who got emotional. Jinoza now realizes that Shinya's culprit was real after all. Having a big heart, Shinya asks him not to worry about it, understanding that Jinoza would have been a bad inspector if he took every word of an enforcer seriously. It seems that Jinoza now understands that Shinya knows the specimen case better than anyone else, and now that there's a similar case, his insights are as valuable as any records. Thereafter, Shinya tells Jinoza how he has now started feeling way better than ever before. Days after the investigation at the academy, Shinya decides to introduce Akane to a renowned criminal behavior researcher. On the way, they watch an interview with Toyohisa Senguji, the same man who tracked down Rikako. Senguji, interested in immortality, is a pioneer of cyberization and has transformed most of his body into cybernetic parts, leaving only his brain and nervous system human. He also leads a company involved in underground redevelopment. In the interview, he discusses his views on turning humans into cyborgs, claiming that humans already function like cyborgs due to their heavy reliance on electronic devices. This reliance, he argues, mirrors the feedback process central to cyberization. For him, the history of science is about enhancing human capabilities, which naturally leads to cyberization. Shinya, however, has little interest in the topic. A few minutes later, they arrive at Professor Joji Saiga's house. Saiga, who specialized in clinical psychology, shifted his focus to criminal research. He used to teach profiling techniques at universities before the Sybil system took over. Now retired, he lives simply in the woods without any AI or holograms. Shinya asks him for 2 things. First, to teach Akane the basics of profiling, and second, to allow access to the people who attended his past lectures. His first request is straightforward, as criminal profiling is a practical alternative to the Sybil system. The second request, however, is tied to his suspicions about Shogo. Shinya thinks Shogo is charismatic, possibly even a figure who attended Saiga's lectures on profiling.
Can't tell if Shinya is impressed with Shogo's charisma or concerned.
I know what I'm concerned about. Your constant interruption. Dude, let me watch. With knowledge and charisma, Shogo could easily influence others, giving them a reason to act on their darker motives. It's a long shot, but worth trying to get closer to catching him. Later, as they return, Akane asks Shinya why Professor Saiga's lectures aren't in any database. Shinya explains that attendees often developed clouded psychopasses afterward. This led the government to ban his lectures and let the Sybil system take control. Back at their office, Masaoka gives an update on the case office, presenting a photo of Shibata Yukimori, an elderly man in a nursing home. Despite this, Osu Academy has records showing him as a recently hired art teacher. This implies that Shogo, who posed as Mr. Shibata, is very skilled at hiding his true identity and falsifying records. Additionally, Yayoi finds that all video footage of Shogo has been erased. The only solid piece of evidence left is the short audio clip Shinya recovered. They attempt a traditional composite sketch, but it yields no useful leads. The next day, when Shinya and Akane report to the office, Genoza learns about their visit to Professor Saiga and immediately confronts them. He scolds Shinya for taking Akane to Saiga, claiming it risked her psychopaths. To Akane, he calls her reckless and immature, accusing her of thinking she knows everything when she knows very little. Offended, Akane responds, asserting that while she respects his seniority, they are equals in rank and that she deserves respect for her abilities as an inspector. Her assertive response shocks everyone, and Genoza walks away without saying more. Still upset, Akane considers filing a complaint against Genoza. With HR, however, she reconsiders after Masaoka explains Genoza's perspective. Masaoka shares that Genoza's father was labeled a latent criminal when the Sybil system was new, and there wasn't much understanding about psychopaths, hues, or crime coefficients. Saddened, Akane mentions that she didn't know that, but Masaoka explains that this is why Genoza won't allow other inspectors to take risks on their own. Moreover, being labeled as a latent criminal came with a stigma, even from family. Genoza, who was young then, didn't fully understand the gossip about his father. A similar thing happened with Shinya, when his psychopath became clouded during the specimen case investigation. For Genoza, it felt like he was betrayed twice. Now, Masaoka explains, Genoza wants Akane to keep a professional distance to prevent her from going through the same pain he endured with his loved ones. Akane questions if Shinya feels the same way. Masaoka responds and mentions that he used to, but now he feels oblivious to anything that is not related to Shogo.
Honestly, it's wild how obsessed Shinya is with Shogo. Like, dude, get a hobby.
Nah, I believe it's called dedication that Shinya has towards Shogo to keep him in check.
Well, hate to break it to you, Shinya has been failing so far.
As the CID deals with their internal tensions, Shogo is already planning his next steps. Moreover, he is engaged in a conversation with Toyohisa, where Shogo tells the latter that he has no interest in catching Shinya alive. But Toyohisa is not sure if Shogo wants that, so he asks him if that's okay with him. Furthermore, Toyohisa reminds Shogo that every time Shinya's name is mentioned, he seems to have a wide smile on his face. Hearing this, Shogo cannot help but smile. In the middle of the night, Akane is startled awake by an unexpected message from her friend Yuki, asking her to meet in an abandoned part of the city to discuss something important. Turns out that Yuki has something important to discuss about the case with Akane and doesn't want to do it over the phone, so she has invited Akane to meet her by 3 p.m. tomorrow. The next morning, Akane discovers on a phone call that Yuki has been missing since the night before. As soon as she hangs up, Shinya questions if Yuki hasn't gone to her family's house. When told no, he further asks if there is a possibility that Yuki might be playing with Akane. Though Akane understands that Yuki does play some pranks on her, sometimes she believes that this time it's different. Understanding that Yuki wouldn't joke about such a thing, thereafter, Shinya suggests that the best way for them to find Yuki is to go and see for themselves. Akane even apologizes to Shinya for disturbing him on his free day, but Shinya tells her that it's all good, given that Genoza doesn't find out about this. When they arrive, Shinya immediately senses that something isn't right and warns Akane to stay outside while he checks it out. He believes someone has set a trap, likely hoping Akane would come. Shinya requests permission to carry a weapon, and Akane agrees to be on standby, ready to call for backup if needed. As Shinya descends into the building, Akane guides him using a digital map of the area. At first, everything seems normal, but suddenly, their communication glitches briefly.
All right, something is about to go down, and I'm all here for it.
Unbeknownst to Shinya, when the signal clears up, Akane's voice sounds slightly robotic. Following her directions, he boards a rusty train in front of him. Out of nowhere, the train powers on and starts speeding away. Realizing he has no choice, Shinya heads to the main car to check the controls, only to find Yuki inside, dressed in her nightgown. Meanwhile, Akane, alarmed by the glitch, loses all communication with Shinya. She still sees his location moving rapidly in a straight line on the map, which only adds to her worry. Deciding to act, She calls for backup. Inside the train, Shinya realizes the voice guiding him wasn't Akane's, but a fake recording cleverly crafted to sound like her. He understands that someone has gone to great lengths to separate them. His original assumption that someone had used Yuki to trap Akane was wrong. Instead, it's clear now that the mastermind had planned all along for him to be the one searching for Yuki. Later, when the train finally stops, Shinya tries to contact Akane again, but all communication signals are jammed. Then, he hears the menacing growl of a robotic dog and quickly leads Yuki through an open door to escape. They find themselves in an old, underground facility with dim lighting, trying to stay calm and alert. Above them, Shogo and Toyohisa are watching their every move, having set up the entire trap. Shogo planned everything, from Yuki's kidnapping to leading them inside the facility. Now, it's Toyohisa's turn to hunt them down, something he's more than ready to do. While looking for a way out, Shinya and Yuki find a bag filled with glow sticks, which he uses to light their path without drawing too much attention to their location. They continue through the dark facility, but soon come across another bag. Without thinking, Yuki picks it up, only to find it's a decoy equipped with a signal that calls the robotic dog to their location. They run, but soon encounter Toyohisa, waiting with a shotgun in hand. He fires, but they dodge and hide behind a wall. Shinya realizes they're being hunted and have to be cautious with every move. He asks Yuki to give him the bag she picked up. Inside, he finds a small transponder missing its antenna and battery. It's clear they need to find the missing parts to activate it. But first, Shinya knows they'll have to deal with the robotic dog, or Toyohisa. Shinya tells Yuki to stay hidden and steps out, intentionally drawing Toyohisa and his robotic dog towards him. Rounding a corner, he unexpectedly runs into a second robotic dog, but manages to destroy it with the weapon Akane had provided earlier. The dog stumbles into a trap, and as it goes down, Shinya finds the missing battery taped nearby. Grabbing it, he hurries back to Yuki, dodging Toyohisa's gunfire along the way. The two continue running, seeking a new hiding spot. As they pause, Shinya reflects on the situation. It's now clear that he's the true target, and the mastermind used his connections to Akane and Yuki to lure him into this trap. But discovering the transponder and the quest to find its missing parts feels like more than just a simple trap. It appears that the mastermind is testing him somehow, though he's still unsure why. Thinking it over, Shinya realizes that if Yuki was merely bait, she should have been released once he arrived. This gives him an idea. He asks Yuki to give him her brassiere, and sure enough, he finds the missing antenna hidden where the underwire would usually be.
Not sure if that's just straight up a Chad move from Shinya to see what Yuki has been hiding, or if it was a genuine attempt to find the antenna. Either way, the man was surely happy.
Oh boy, you and your perversity are the two most inseparable things in the universe. With both components, he assembles the transponder, which now starts sending signals. Meanwhile, back at the CID office, Genoza harshly criticizes Akane for letting Shinya go off alone, questioning her judgment. Masaoka intervenes, grabbing Genoza by the collar and reprimands him for going too far. The others are taken aback, especially Akane, as an unexpected realization dawns on her, but there's no time for reflection. Suddenly, they receive Shinya's signal, and everyone springs into action, gearing up for their next move.
Genoza instructs Masaoka and Akane to search for Shinya, while he, Yayoi, and Shusei hunt down the signal jammer. They separate, each team moving toward their target. Trusting his message has reached his colleagues, Shinya focuses on eliminating the remaining robotic dog and its handler. Initially, he finds it too risky to leave his hiding spot, but the mini cart containing his dominator finally arrives. As Shusei locates and destroys the signal jammer, Shinya activates his weapon and fires, reducing the robotic dog to pieces. Now, only the hunter remains, or so Shinya thinks. Watching the scene unfold from an upper floor, Shogo Makishima contacts Toyohisa, instructing him to leave, as it's only a matter of time before the CID apprehends him. But Toyohisa, the old cyborg, refuses to retreat. Throughout his long life, he has perfected his hunting skills, and every hunt ends with him capturing his prey. However, he recognizes that this encounter feels different, fueling his blood with renewed adrenaline. For the first time, he resolves to face his target, not as a hunter, but as a duelist. All that talk of cyborgs and stuff is giving me serious Terminator vibes.
Oh, just wait till their encounter begins. I'm sure Shogo is ready to trigger his berserker mode.
Shogo acknowledges Toyohisa's choice, praising his bravery. Yet Shogo's eyes reveal his true indifference. Toyohisa is merely a pawn in his scheme. What follows is an intense chase between Shinya and Toyohisa. Both men wield their weapons with lethal intent. At one point, Shinya manages to shoot Toyohisa in the arm, arm, but Toyohisa fires back, Shinji in his side. Relentless, Toyohisa presses his advantage, relying on his cyborg enhancements. Following a trail of Shinya's blood, Toyohisa turns a corner and raises his weapon, only to find Yuki standing defiantly before him. To his right, Shinya has his Dominator aimed squarely at him. The weapon registers Toyohisa's crime coefficient at 328, enough for immediate elimination. Shinya fires, leaving Toyohisa's remains scattered, only his metal body parts intact. Yuki rushes over to Shinya, who, weakened by his injury, can no longer stand. Before he loses consciousness, he catches a glimpse of another man handcuffing Yuki and dragging her away. The man is young and tall, with striking white hair. He remarks that he would have stayed to face Shinya, but seeing his weakened state, decides otherwise, dragging Yuki along with him. When Shinya regains consciousness, Akane is already by his side, while Masaoka administers first aid. Shinya tells her that someone has taken Yuki. Without hesitation, Akane sets off in the direction he points. Soon, Genoza and the rest of the team reach Shinya and Masaoka. Yayoi scans the area and identifies the remnants of the culprit, realizing that Senguji Toyohuza, a prominent figure from the Ministry of Welfare, was behind this incident. Masaoka shifts their focus, urging them to find Akane, as she could be in grave danger. And indeed, she is, but it's not a physical threat she faces. She tracks down Yuki, who is being dragged by a white-haired man. He introduces himself as Shogo Makishima, leaving Akane stunned to finally confront the elusive criminal. Even more shocking, her Dominator reads his crime coefficient as below 100, far below the threshold for elimination, even though his actions clearly indicate criminal behavior. Akane orders him to release Yuki, declaring him under arrest for multiple crimes. However, Shogo questions her authority, asking what crimes he has committed. He further asks if these crimes are decided by the Sybil system, and if so, he inquires why her Dominator doesn't register his psychopaths properly. Moreover, he explains that his hue has always been pure and unblemished, impervious to cymatic scans. He openly challenges the Sybil system's criteria for judging people, pointing out that it decides who is good and who is bad without considering people's individual will. He continues, asserting that a person's worth lies in their will and their ability to choose. Surrendering to a system that erases this choice, he argues, strips people of their value, reducing them to empty shells. With chilling calm, he declares that only those with the will to commit crimes are fit to judge him. As if to test her, he tosses a shotgun to Akane. She holds her Dominator aimed at him, but it fails to register him as a criminal. Shogo urges her to shoot, warning that otherwise he will end Yuki's life. Trembling, Akane picks up the shotgun, struggling to steady both weapons. Shogo taunts her, saying she'll only save her friend if she can summon the will to pull the trigger. He challenges her to let her killing intent take control, a sensation she'll never experience as long as she's bound by the Sybil system. To prove his point, the Dominator once again registers Shogo's crime coefficient as too low to act upon, locking the trigger. For the first time, Akane realizes that the system, which she once believed to be infallible, is failing her, refusing to allow her to do what she knows is right. Her only intent is to save, not kill, and with a desperate lunge, she fires the shotgun, emptying its last 2 bullets. Shogo's face falls in disappointment. To him, Akane is just another puppet of the system, another person lacking true will. In a single swift motion, Shogo draws a straight-edged blade across Yuki's throat. Akane's scream fills the empty air, her horror echoing down the hall. Dude, Shogo totally just dropped a truth bomb on Akane. Like, how wild is it that the system's failing her?
For real, but Akane shouldn't have hesitated. You gotta do what you gotta do to save your girl, you know?
Moments later, police cars surround the building, and paramedics tend to the wounded Shinya. On one side, Masaoka consoles a shaken Akane. She tells Shinya that she finally encountered Shogo, her voice filled with regret and self-blame for Yuki's death. She painfully acknowledges that the Dominator, the Sybil system itself, failed to judge Shogo Makishima.
And that, folks, wraps up our video, leaving us on the edge. Akane and Shinya are closing in on Shogo Makishima, a mysterious criminal who somehow evades the Sybil system's judgment. With the system unable to read his true intentions, will Shogo turn out to be unstoppable and even more dangerous? To find that out, subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell icon so you can be the first one to know what happens next. See you in the next one!